もしやコスモでは。
Cosmo needs me free.
Cosmo AP Luxury Sports.
Well, with the blasting done, it's time to start some sheet metal work at the front of the car. So the first thing I've done is to cut a big hole out of the inner fender to fix this much smaller hole in the inner fender. Well, it turns out that I do have a sheet metal brake after all. I kind of forgot that this thing was purchased on sale at Princess Auto by a shopmate. It says it will do up to 20 gauge, and this is 20 gauge, so give it a try. Hey, not bad. Not great, but not bad. Well, it's about as good as the factory bend, so I guess I can't complain. Made me a patch panel. Now you'll notice it's a bit different than the panel that I took out. The panel that I removed had this raised area with 2 bolt holes, but I can't find anything that actually bolts there. So I just eliminated it when I made mine in the interest of having a slightly smoother engine bay. On several suggestions from viewers, I picked up this awesome flanger puncher tool, which makes these spot weld holes a lot easier. The way to do these spot welds is to hold the metal tightly together on both sides with vice grips. Nice. When welding in a panel like this of compound curves, you kind of have to chase the curve around the panel, hold it into place, and then tack it. Then on the final weld, all the areas like here that don't perfectly match just get hammered into place. Now let's be realistic here too. This is the inside of a fender. No one's going to see it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But the other side that's visible from the engine bay, the seams need to line up pretty well. Oh, and that's why I'm going to tack weld it on this side, but finish weld it on that side. And finish welding it on this side will give me that surface to grind down. And those 2 tacks brought this panel here into alignment. Oh, hot.
Because this is a large flat area, I'm spacing my welds out and keeping my tacks short to try to keep warpage under control. But the fact is, warping sheet metal is a reality of welding it, so some hammer and dolly work is going to be necessary to straighten it out. This area here is the 90-degree join where the panel meets the flange that the fender sits on. There's more strength here, so I can put more heat into the weld. I alternated between grinding and hammer and dolly work to work the distortion out of the panel.
Trying to avoid getting the weld primer in places where I don't need it, because it'll just save me the trouble of stripping it off afterwards to apply the POR15. The area was weld primered because I made this piece to replace this rusted thing. A random curiosity is this hole. I have no idea why it's there because it's completely covered up by this piece. Maybe it's left over from an earlier stamping? I don't know. And after the obligatory welding and grinding, the patch is in place. I just finished welding in a piece to replace this, which turned to Swiss cheese after blasting. I've already drilled out 7 billion spot welds and removed this piece from this rusted section. Now I'm just air hammering it off.
This metal is paper thin after years of rust caused by the moisture trapped between the two panels. It has about as much strength left as tinfoil.
I'm replacing this area in 2 sections. This lower piece, which I'm fitting now, and then this upper piece. It's just going to be a lot easier to do the compound curves involved in 2 sections rather than 1. Grind. Just use the old piece to get the location of the spot weld holes. These top holes I can punch using my wicked awesome tool. But the bottom holes I'll have to drill, which kind of sucks. Man, I love this thing. If you're doing any sheet metal work at all, you need one of these tools. This is a spot blaster. It has these interchangeable nozzles that are supposed to fit around what you're blasting, and then the used blast media is supposed to go in this bag. It mostly works. It still creates a bit of a mess through overspray, but most of the media does go in the bag. I'm just going to use it to give these pieces a bit of a blasting before I paint them with weld-through primer. This type of blaster uses a lot less air than the big pressure blaster, so even when somebody with a relatively small air compressor can still use one. Of course, it's really only suitable for small areas. Well, that edge actually isn't too bad. I thought I would have to replace this area, but you know, it looks badly pitted, but it's still pretty thick, so you know what? Probably doesn't need to be replaced. Replacing this strip is kicking my ass. For some reason, such a simple repair is turning out very complicated. Here's my first attempt. Doesn't fit. It's oddly curved. Here's my second attempt. A little bit better, but still not even close. Here's attempt number 3 to sort of do the middle section. It wasn't going to work. So now I'm starting with a cardboard template, and I'm going to construct everything up until about here. And then I think I can salvage the curved part from my first attempt. I think I finally may have cracked it by making a template first. This is actually the first time I've needed to make a template for a repair in a while. Yep, that seems to fit reasonably well. I finally made a piece that's close enough that with a little hammer persuasion, it'll fit. It's all weld primed and ready to weld. The next piece that I have to make is this reinforcing plate. I'm making this thing out of several different pieces that I'm welding together just because of all the compound curves that are involved. It's going to mean a bit more grinding, but since this is a piece that's hidden under 2 other layers of metal that no one will ever see, I don't really have to spend that much time grinding it out. Not bad at all. Warm. This is the last piece, and since it's a compound curved shape, I'm just making a template out of tape to get the basic shape of it, and then I'll cut it out in metal. Ah, that worked out pretty well. Transfer this template onto some metal. Last bloody piece. Holy crap, what? I'm TIG welding this for a neater weld, just because I don't want to spend so much time grinding. It's going to be a part that's covered up by multiple other layers, so I don't see the point in really spending a lot of time to grind on the welds when no one's really going to see them anyway. But then again, I don't want to show messy sheet metal MIG weld, so I decided to TIG. Also, it's been a while since I've TIG welded something. I've saved everyone the singular joy that I felt putting in all these spot welds, but you can revel in the last weld on this stupid piece that I've wasted a lot of time on. Done. I've taken this door off before I continue the metal repairs for better access. This is not something I would recommend doing yourself, because I'm sure that as soon as I pull this bolt out, there's going to be 100 or so pounds of door swinging freely, supported only by a jack. Ideally, there should be another person, but there isn't. So I have the camera on in case this is a horrific disaster, just so that there's videotape to show the hospital when I explain how I sustained the injuries. Actually, that's not too bad. Well, now it's time to start working on this area, both internally and externally. But first, in order to access some of the parts that are rusted out, I have to remove this section of the floor, which, as always, starts with drilling out spot welds. There's nothing up here to grip. It's hard to get leverage. That's what she said. Before I completely hack this corner of the car up, I'm trying to repair the pinch weld as much as possible. It's been bent up from years and years of jacking the car improperly at the corners. The corners of the car are only there to be jacked up in emergencies at the side of the road using the little jack that comes with the car. For regular maintenance, cars need to be jacked up at the approved lifting points, which is normally the rear differential or front subframe or rear subframe if your car has one. I see this damage all the time, and it's completely avoidable if proper jacking procedures are followed. Now, I've actually been hammering on this off and on for about 2 hours, and I've already accomplished bringing this pinch weld down about 1 inch. So it's working, and it's almost done.
Now the work can begin on the massive amount of rust damage in the passenger footwell and sill area. As always, the work starts by cutting out the old rotted metal.
The last piece. Reconstruction can begin. Over the last little while, I did some extremely boring repairs off camera, like fixing the weld flanges here and here, as well as repairing this section of the frame. So right now I'm just going to remove the masking paper that I've used to mask off some areas I've weld-through primed so that I can start repairing this inside the sill little hidden area here. Since I've Swiss cheesed the floor, it seems like a reasonable time right now to POR15 the inside of the frame rails. It's already been metal readied, and this is the second coat of POR15. So once it's dry, I can continue on with the ever so joyful metal repairs. Just a little bit of weld-through primer on the floor patches I've made. This is the third and final coat. And of course on all the flanges that I have to weld to.
Notice how I'm using the punch to line the new panel up to the floor contours. The floor is kind of bent in a weird way through years and years of use and people's heavy-ass feet on the frame, so it's going to be a lot easier to create a better seam if the two panels match.
Holy crap, this grinding position is so awkward. It's more awkward than having to admit to your mom that you just lost your virginity. And she's pregnant. And she's your cousin. And it happened at your grandmother's funeral. Off camera, I repaired this piece. It used to look, well, like that. So I'll just weld it in, which I can't film because of the awkward position.
Well, apparently it looks like I can film it.
I made a lot of holes in this area when I took that piece off, and I think the metal is probably strong enough that I can just weld them shut. So we'll see how this goes and whether or not it's worth just welding them or completely replacing the panel. The problem with replacing the panel is that the back side is in kind of an awkward spot, so it's a bit of a pain in the ass to grind. And if I keep my grinding to this side, I think I'll be happier with just patching the hole. Well, it seems like the metal's pretty thick, so I think this will work. Just going to flatten this thing out. It'll make it much easier to recreate a new piece. But first, I'm going to mark out where it needs to be bent so that I don't mess up when I put the new one through the metal brake. Okay, make it flat. Good enough. Now we'll just trace this bad boy out. You've seen me do this about 1,000,000 times so far. But, you know, that's sheet metal. Just make the bend with the old brake. Close enough, I'm sure. Just make the spot welds first, and then I will weld the rest of it in place. And so ends episode 21. Now, I've been promising everyone on the forums that part 21 is going to be the last sheet metal episode, but I'm sorry, that's not quite true. I still have this corner to finish, and I'm going to be doing a lot of fairly intricate panel making in that area, so I should include it because it's probably going to be at least reasonably interesting. As far as the driver's side, I have to do the exact same work again on the driver's side, but I will not be subjecting everyone to that because it is literally the exact same set of repairs that I did on the passenger side. So, with that said, I just wanted to get episode 21 out there because it's been a long time since I've put out a video, and I just didn't want anybody to think I died in like some kind of horrible, tragic alpaca accident. I am still alive, and I am still working on the car. So, thus ends episode 21, and I'll see you in part 22.